We're kicking off our first Porter Novelli Perspectives conversation with Bryan Breckenridge, of Box.org, the executive director there. And today we're going to talk about mobilizing communities and corporations for social good in the modern world. So glad to have Bryan kicking off our session today, bright and early.
Harold, it's great to be here.
Glad to have you. So definitely want you to talk a bit about yourself and what you do first before we talk a little bit more about mobilizing communities and corporations.
Okay, happy to do that. So I'm Bryan Breckenridge, and I grew up in Kansas, and grew up with a strong sense instilled in me that giving back to the community that I was living in was an important way to live.
Absolutely.
And during college, I stayed with that in some manner.
Okay.
When I moved to the West Coast back in '96, I quickly, through startups and other companies, found myself in a company called Salesforce that took social investment and philanthropic integration very seriously under the leadership of Mark Minioff, and was there for 10 years and realized that business can coexist really well with, creating social impact and lifting up employee activists and creating social impact through the core competencies of the company.
Yes.
And so when I went to LinkedIn, I realized you can also amplify that really heavily across large networks.
Okay.
And when I came to Box 3 years ago, I had the good fortune of looking after both of those things, both the way the core competency makes a difference and also the way the employees do, and started folding that in. So it's been a career in the cloud for me in terms of career.
Right.
But otherwise, I live in the Bay Area, which is the San Francisco area. So right there, you see a lot of companies that realize that their business model can also have a big impact, and so it fits me really well, and it's fun to work in this space.
Absolutely. So thank you for giving us that great background on your career and what led you into helping in the social impact realm and collaborating with the technology.
Yeah.
I saw that you guys work with over 5,000 nonprofits.
Yeah, we're coming up on 6,400 right now.
Oh wow, that's amazing.
Yeah,
amazing.
From 600 3 years ago that we're using Box to fulfill our work. So.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So one of the examples that I did see is what Team Rubicon was doing.
Yeah.
Using Box and collaborating
That's right.
in a very effective way. Can you talk a bit more about what they're doing and what other organizations like them, other nonprofits might be doing to help kind of merge that gap between technology and CSR?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, when you think about Team Rubicon, they rely heavily on their network of over 40,000 volunteers, right? 85% of those are military veterans that are back from service and finding an amazing and fulfilling place to use their skills and their efforts. And I just get so moved by their work. So Team Rubicon is a small staff of 50, 60 employees, but again, 40,000 volunteers.
Amazing.
500 of which help them mobilize. They called them the leadership group.
Okay.
And the leadership volunteers are currently on one Box site. So you got about 500-600 people at Team Rubicon on a Box site collaborating intensely. So they respond to dozens of disasters around the world per year with a staff of 50 people.
Wow.
Why? Because they use technology to mobilize
help with that
and bring the collaboration and the content to the right people at the right time. So they send a message out to 40,000 and say, okay, there's a flood in Joplin, Missouri. Who can help out? And they down select a list of, say, some chainsaw folks, some medical folks, the specialists that they need in their network. Okay. And then they vet that list down, and then they mobilize, commence on the operation, clean up the flood zone, save the people that really need that service. Okay. And then they find good ways to deconstruct that site and help kick that area into the recovery phase of things. But because they implement technology so well, they have almost zero servers in the entire infrastructure.
Oh, wow.
So you're mobilizing tens of thousands of people through technology to provide service to people in need. Right. And that absolutely inspires the technology community to come to their aid. And you see a lot of amazing tech companies that help out. We created a coalition called the Impact Cloud.
Yes.
And you can read that at impactcloud.org, but that's a bunch of cloud companies that just said, our technology can enable collaboration, right, and getting the right assets to the right people at the right time in a secure way. And so you've got all these amazing organizations from the older, more mature organizations, like Relief International and Oxfam and International Rescue Committee, these big global organizations on this new technology, but you also see the upstarts like Team Rubicon disrupting and doing new things and going further because of that tech.
Awesome. So Were you the primary aggregators of that company, or excuse me, of that collection or collaboration of the tech?
Yeah, that actually was, it was born out of a Clinton Global Initiative Commitment to Action that I authored and had lots of good input from our partners, but that was a forcing function for Box.org to really get organized in one key area.
Right.
And we knew that, especially with the pressure of the CGI media community and the cameras and stuff, I knew we were going to have to really get organized. We really put ourselves out there to create that community. And because of the mentoring, and fortunately I was able to take on a role as one of the advisory board members for CGI, kind of in its last phase there. And so we rallied all those partners to commit, to start to innovate against this issue as a result of that structure, the commitment to action structure. Yeah.
So with that structure, is that transitioning from a platform as a service to a infrastructure as a service kind of, or is it the opposite way around?
I think what it really now is it's a coalition of the willing, it's a coalition of the excited, it's a coalition of leaders in the field.
Yes.
And so when you think about those different technologies, they all do what they do best.
Right.
And you think about all these modern platforms out there now, people like Team Rubicon, they're not building necessarily everything from the ground up. They're taking advantage of the components of different services.
Okay.
So Box is handling the documents, Twilio is handling the SMSs and the tweets. Right. Splunk is handling the system analysis. Salesforce is handling the structured data. DocuSign is handling the electronic signature. What the Impact Cloud hasn't done yet is create these firm and fixed big solutions.
Okay.
But because the organizations are so close, we're having organizations from the humanitarian sector come into our world and let all 7 of us or 8 of us sit around that organization and hear that organization at the same time.
Wow.
And what's coming from that is volunteerism, it's financial contributions and investments, it's new technology, it's some new solutions, but I think we have to be really careful that we don't go ready fit a solution for 1 or 2 organizations and then miss the other 6 or 7 million organizations around the world that need these cross-vendor solutions.
Absolutely.
So we're being very mindful before we start to build roadmaps under the product side.
Okay.
But certainly advancing lots of pilot projects with great organizations together, instead of separate. And that puts a lot less strain on the nonprofit when they're coming to 7 or 8 leading vendors at one time, instead of having 8 consultants, 8 sales teams calling on them. It's more of a unified structure. Yeah, we call them innovation celebrations when we get everybody together.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That is awesome. So with you working with so many global nonprofits.
Yeah, and so many all over the place, all different sizes too.
Right.
From 28,000 people on one Box site down to 1 volunteer.
Wow.
Yeah.
So the infrastructure is scalable enough where you're able to utilize whatever technology is in that city or that country where they might not need Wi-Fi or anything else, but they just have access through either just a general phone, smartphone, a laptop, or what have you, and everyone could work on one accord without having the newest and latest technology,
That's
but using...
Right. I mean, these cloud technologies allow that. The horizontal, the basics that they provide, like with Box, like if your use of this platform that we work with now the most, that actually we support and maintain, the basics of having a place where everybody can store the file and get to it in one place. So maybe it's 15 departments writing a grant proposal, or 20 or 30 crisis responders, or a mentor and a mentee in a workforce development organization. They can all be in the same place working on documents. That's the basics. And we're going to keep updating it, and they're going to always have the latest and greatest at that level. But now it starts to get exciting that we're creating this community of excellence where people are saying, we need to use this stuff for fundraising, and we need to tie in these other systems, or we need to use this in the field, or we need to use this to onboard volunteers so that we don't have to hire 3 more people just to onboard the volunteers to manage all the information associated with that. So it's like the basics really do support all 6,400 of those organizations, but because they all do really unique things, we're also taking a good look at those things and starting to optimize the ways that these modern platforms can fit into those purpose areas, effectively.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. So what do you see, or where do you see Box.org and your partnerships 5 years from now?
It's a good question. It's one of those that I gotta kind of take a moment to ponder, because I don't want to just speak to it and not mean it.
And when I say it, I mean in terms of the growth that you shared with me, going from 5,000 to 6,400 and continuing to grow.
Yeah.
absolutely going on that track, but also the innovation and the collaboration that comes with it in terms of grabbing additional partners and what have you.
Yeah, I'll tell you. So Box.org in general, it mobilizes not only the entire global nonprofit community to use technology to optimum levels, and specifically a lot of different cloud technologies, but it's also meant to mobilize the community of people that associate with Box as a company and be seen as inspiring to other companies. And so when we think of the pillars, and in 5 years, to come back to your original question, we're going to see just a maturing and a scaling in all these areas. The first is our people, the employees, our partners, the community around us, the vendors, the people that we're closest to. How can we mobilize them to fulfill their social impact mission?
Yes.
With our technology, with our knowledge, with our voice, with the reach that we have as a company, right? That's the people part. Yes. Then there is the technology piece in that pillar. And how can we now optimize and start to fit the technologies, not just ours, but the ones that fit in well with our technology into the humanitarian and social impact space optimally. But then there's also institutionally, how can we mobilize the assets of the company and its brand to also go out and create social impact?
Absolutely.
And so in 5 years, I see the relationships progressing much like they have been so far. And I'll give you a quick example.
Okay.
So you look at the International Rescue Committee as one example, and then I'd like to probably come back to a couple of others, but when you look at the way with which the International Rescue Committee operates, they have tens of thousands of staff resettling asylees and refugees back into other countries away from harm's way.
Right.
So David Miliband and his organization served 23 million people last year.
Wow.
As an organization, right? And you know they're under fire right now, make no mistake.
Yes.
Like with some of the executive orders, their funding is under fire, their settlement process, the vetting that they pursue is under fire. Very provocative space to be in, I have to say.
Right.
But we're very proud to support them. And so thousands of their staff are mobilizing the content that they have for this resettlement process, for fundraising, et cetera, on the Box platform. So that to me is very exciting, and we're building some custom things that help them do that even better. But now we're starting to see the evolution to where skilled employees at Box and our partner organizations through Impact Cloud, that mechanism, are starting to come to their aid as well. So we're seeing an evolving and a deepening of the technology pieces, and we're seeing the institutional assets of companies start to support their work in ways that they hadn't been before. So look at us making a $100,000 gift. It's our first ever contribution at that scale that we've made as a business, because we knew that it's a human thing and it's an important area for us to start into the investment side of our work, the institutional side, because the work is so urgent that they're doing. So now you're in this trifecta or grand slam kind of partnering arrangement that's evolving. Now will, in 5 years, the people piece, the technology piece, and the institutional piece just deepen and grow? I think yes.
Yes.
And then you see the media companies pick it up, and you see the things that were working in the early days really amplified and grow.
Okay.
And that's when it gets exciting. And we're seeing a lot of that stuff even right here at South by in these relationships as they become a lot more than just using the technology. Certainly that's at the core, but then all these other things are making that even more effective for those organizations.
Definitely. And I mean, I think you're in the right place because we're right next to the Social Impact Pavilion.
Yeah, that was really great. I'm glad that you set up shop right next to the right place. Yeah.
Yes. We're being mindful that you were coming to set everything, start
well,
everything
and ironically,
off.
You're right here between health and impact.
Yes.
And that's what that whole thing's about. So,
yes.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, leading to the next point about how greater collaboration powers greater social good.
Yeah.
We have a similar mantra in our Atlanta office, which is doing well by doing good. We work with several nonprofits in our own space, and we do some pro bono work. We've done things in the past with Future Foundation, which is an Atlanta-based nonprofit, and a few others where we provide support around generating greater visibility.
Love it.
And I know that your mission around creating that technology and that collaboration, how do the employees factor into that? Can you give us a little bit more detail about that?
Yeah, for sure. So if you first would just humor me and tell me why or how what your firm here in the PR world does inspires you.
Yes.
You just suggested that you do that work in Atlanta. Just tell me quickly about how you as an employee in the Atlanta area for your great global firm, what's good about the fact, or like, I don't know exactly how to phrase the question, but like, why does it matter to you that your firm gives back? You know?
It means a great deal to me because now I have the opportunity to give back, and when I was growing up, I did see individuals that did that. So one program that comes to mind was the DARE program, right? And, you know, say no to drugs and all those things.
Yeah.
There was a gentleman who unfortunately passed away, but his name was Officer Mahoney, and he would come in when I from second grade all the way up until I was in middle school, and he would talk to us about the dangers of drugs and everything else, and it stuck with me.
Yeah.
Not that it was about the whole drug portion, but the fact that he was giving back. Like he was fighting crime, making sure our streets were safe, but he was also talking to the kids. So once I matured, I knew that I wanted to do the same thing.
Yes.
And I hold that close to my heart.
So you had that mentor. I can
Exactly.
feel it. Like
Yes.
I can feel the impact that he had.
Yes. Yes.
And it sounds like he gave you a vehicle to act on something that you knew you wanted to feel in your process of growing up, which was to feel safe, to contribute, and so on.
Yes.
And I think when organizations can authentically bring their assets behind their employees, that's when you really start to see the magic happen.
Yes.
Right? So I'll tell you a quick story. On January 12th, I got an email from our VP of Marketing, Lauren Vaccarello.
Yes.
And she had just read a bunch of articles in the New York Magazine about the jeopardy that women's health was falling into. She saw that 55 million could get their access to free birth control stripped away in some of the political scenarios that are going on right now. And she was incensed.
Yes.
So I feel very honored that what she decided to do, she probably had a glass of wine or two, she already admits that, but she sent me an email,
Yes.
like close to midnight, right? And just said, I'm really upset, I'm really frustrated about what's happening and the way that Planned Parenthood and a lot of other organizations are in jeopardy. What can I do?
Right.
And what can we do? And what can Box.org help me do? And I sensed that urgency. So I immediately jumped into action and I forwarded that email to Cecile Richards' office over at Planned Parenthood, to Tom Subak, her head of innovation, to Dawn Legans, her head of brand globally, and so on. And they immediately responded when they woke up that next morning and they said, we love the energy of that employee. We love the fact that she's frustrated, and in fact, if you're open to doing some exciting things, we'd like to team up with you where we can. And of course, we were receptive. And so you fast forward a few months now, and just last night we had, or 2 nights ago, we had 200 people at our office here in our box office here in Austin.
Yes.
And we had the editor-in-chief of Glamour and the CEO of BeautyCon and Jess Ladd from Project Callisto, an amazing anti-violence and rape application that's out there, and Cecile from Planned Parenthood, who opened a panel to launch something called Innovators for Women's Health, which is over at i4wh.com.
Okay.
And I mention that because it's a community now that's going to very soon have thousands of technology and media people and PR type folks involved in a community to specifically hear what women's health and the women's health movement is most in need of.
Absolutely.
From a media, from a technology perspective, innovation perspective. And so just think about this. That was one employee that was frustrated, and she reached out to Box.org, whose mission is to help nonprofits in the Box community fulfill its social mission.
Right.
The nonprofit came to the table, the media company came to the table, and the tech community came to the table. And we launched this community that, frankly, for thousands of technology people to go to Planned Parenthood and say, how do we help? You know, what can we build for you? And if Silicon Valley, which is now finally coming out of the closet, so to speak, on women's health and supporting Planned Parenthood, if we can mobilize that community, because of one employee who cared a lot about that and is now the co-founder of I4WH, and it's a movement and it's all over the world, just in a couple of months, then anything can happen. And now, here's what's interesting. You see those dominoes start to fall. I got a text right before that panel started from a friend back in the San Francisco area, and he said, in light of what you're doing in Austin this week, our family has decided to make a $100,000, I get worked up, $100,000 contribution to Planned Parenthood because of that work, and we're going to do it in the name of our kids and our family. And so when I'm getting that from the people that I hold dear in my network, my colleagues, doing that, bringing in the financial piece, because we're mobilizing the tech and media piece for scale to leading organizations, I just, to me it's very fun, and it's a good example of when a corporation allows its people to act on what they're passionate about, and it gives them the infrastructure, global movements can happen very quickly. And that to me is very inspiring.
That's awesome. I mean, it all started with that emotion and that connection and an email, and you were able to connect the dots.
And the permission to care.
Yes.
Right? That employee was like, the employee or that person in our community was like, hey, we really care about this. And next thing you know, Box Women's Network cares about this, right? Next thing you know, our partners are caring about this. Next thing you know, the leading organizations that we're able to do something with care about this, and now we're all together on the same page. But it all came back to a very authentic interest to create impact in an urgent space, with permission to take action, and a war chest of assets mobilized to support that energy. Yeah,
and that speaks more to, in my opinion, the power of the people that you have and the kind hearts. And
that's right.
Coupled with the
from
technology.
The top down.
Yeah, from the top down.
From the founders of Box, you look at these guys, Jeff and Dylan, and Sam and Aaron are lovely guys. They're just turning 30, 31 years old. So they're not, and they've had the company for 11 or 12 years. They're not saying, now I'm 60, now the company was a success for all these 30 years, 40 years, and now it's time to go give back. They're getting involved in the areas that they're passionate. The employees see that, they act on it, right? And the next thing you know, that's a magnet. So Cecile from Planned Parenthood is showing up at our office, right? David Miliband from IRC is coming to our leadership committee meetings. And he's very busy right now, obviously, in the refugee space. But because of that energy, they know that it's an authentic thing for us. And now we're really bringing our assets to bear, be they financial or voice or technology or people. And once those are brought to the same page in a structure that amplifies their passion into a scalable structure, then amazing things can happen. And corporations, frankly, things are changing in this space. Like philanthropy is not just cut a check and walk away.
No.
It's bring all your strength, all your assets to bear.
Yes.
And mobilize those, because it is good for the world and good for business. And it turns out that cycle comes back on itself very quickly. Much like you said, doing good while you're doing well.
Yes.
Right? And that's something that I'm seeing technology companies really turn on.
And I think that speaks to creating a more sustainable ecosystem.
Correct.
Not only on the technology, but as we talked about earlier, about the emotion that's attached to it and the permission that people have.
Yes.
Because if you don't do that, then, as you said, giving a check, that it does help, but it will not leave a lasting impression. It will not help to make
and
change.
It doesn't create a story. It doesn't even create a story, because the change suddenly isn't even necessarily that interesting if you're so disconnected from, kind of a financial only philanthropy model.
Right.
Then you don't see that I say heart energy, right? But you don't see that piece. You don't see that come through. Okay. You see the energy somewhat, but you don't necessarily see the belief that it's a deeply committed endeavor. If it's really just more of a flyby philanthropy as we see it. And then frankly, I'm sure that PR firms, like in the space that you all are in, I know you do a lot of work in social reputation, in social storytelling and all that sort of thing, even in the corporate intersection.
Yes.
And frankly, even storytelling is not as interesting if you're not really invested, at a deep level in this stuff. People can read that right away.
Agreed. And I think it also layers into what you do intentionally and where that lands within your family as well. Me personally, I have 3 daughters.
Amazing.
And making sure that they see that I'm doing well by helping the community.
Yes.
Impacts them.
Yes.
So one quick story about my oldest daughter is every day when my wife picks her up from aftercare, she's at the sewer saying, "Feeding the sewer monster."
Amazing.
And it's nothing that we've seen. But
she
every
probably
single
saw
day
it.
she'll bring
Kids can
food
see all that stuff.
and give it every single time. And that's just because she's like, I don't want him to be hungry. And that's just a broader impact about what we want to do, what Boxorg wants to do, what Porter Novelli wants to do, and the community to make sure that there's a lasting impact in giving back and creating that ecosystem.
Yeah, it's amazing to see that. My little girl asked me like 3 years ago, Daddy, I want to create this website called Friend Finder or Friend Help. Mm-hmm. She was coming up with the URL before she had the idea of what it was going to do. But People Finder or People Help, she said, when people move to a new area, I want them to be able to find friends faster.
Yes. So
that they don't have to, so they can be really comfortable in their new school. And I loved that. And then that evolved quickly into something called People Save the Earth. And she came up with this at a lunch one day with me. And I said, okay, well, we'll go out and get a little GoDaddy website. And peoplesavetheearth.com was her website. Mm-hmm. It was a little free website. We launched it, right? And it was just her commitment to how the grown-ups needed to because the kids, she would always say, the kids, we want to save the earth, but we don't have any money, Daddy. We don't have any power yet. And I said, you don't understand. You do have power. But she'd say, we don't have power yet. I said, well, we'll start with a website. And the Nature Conservancy saw the website, picked it up, and started tweeting it and sending people over there. And to your point, it's like that energy is just, it's literally no different in harnessing like a 40-year-old colleague, in the corporate world. That energy is similar, but they may have been in organizations where, just like with our kids, and we bring that out of them, we give them that permission and we make that okay. It's pretty similar with grown-ups, it turns out.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Pretty wild.
Well, I know we're closed in on time, so I definitely want to open the floor up for any Q&A from the Facebook live stream. The first person who asks a question on Facebook Live will win a tracker device. The very first person that asks a question can come to our booth and receive a tracker device. So if you do that...
Where are we, booth 664?
Or booth 644 and 646. So if you ask the question to Bryan, you'll enter a chance to win something in real time. That's what we're doing right now. So if there's anything that you want to wrap up with, any questions you have for me, or any knowledge or information that you want to share with some of our followers, feel free to do so now.
Yeah. So all of us know nonprofits, whether it be like DARE that affected your life when you were growing up, or our local church, or whatever it might be. Those organizations can mobilize all of the stuff that they keep track of, all the pictures and documents and videos and all that sort of thing, or even how they collaborate with their PR firm on Box on a donated basis.
Yes.
So Box.org is where nonprofits can get Box at a donated level. And then just because we're here at South by and we launched it a couple of nights back, this i4wh.com is definitely worth a quick look if you care about women's health, and if you're an innovator or a media or technology leader. It's a great community to check out.
Absolutely. And we have two individuals here that I'll definitely connect you with, the head of our tech practice, Catherine Wetzel, and the head of our diversity and inclusion, Sumi Kim.
That'd be an honor to meet them.
So they would love the organization that you just mentioned, and definitely go to box.org. Great people doing great things, and thank you for taking the time today to connect with us. Really appreciate it.
Appreciate you. Thanks for this.
Thank you.
And thanks to Randy as well here at the end for introducing me to this opportunity. I'm grateful.
Thank you.